Truly one of the most inspirational people that I just happened to, in a weird way, not randomly, but odd in a wonderful way, meet and connect with Jenn, who's been part of a few of the resilience and all work that I've been involved in. And anytime she says yes, it proves to me that there is time if we make time for it, given that she's not just doing work on this planet, she's doing work in space. Jenn, on that note, jump in, please.
All right, it's a tough intro to live up to, so I'll do my best. But it's like everything else, it's in the eye of the beholder. So yeah, Jim Fogarty. I spent 17 years at NASA. My background is a PhD in medical physiology. I study diseases of the human body, how it goes right and how it can go terribly wrong. And here's my public service announcement that I give out now because everybody's looking for this magic pill. And I would say it's movement, it's exercise, it's engaging your body regularly and making it do some work. Hard work sometimes pays off in dividends. And so we're always looking for shortcuts, but sometimes it's the work you put in that is the reward in and of itself. I've spent the last couple of years, I transitioned out of NASA and moved to Baylor College of Medicine. I am here in Houston, Texas. So my world has been human spaceflight. And it has taught me a lot about how we perceive our world. And I'm going to try to connect to the last session because there is so much there in the high technical world I work in looking for solutions. What does it mean to be a human? And when you put that human in a very remote and austere environment, how are they going to survive? And not just survive, but thrive. We're asking them to do a job, actually a very complex job. And they are out on the leading edge of what humans can do. And it's been my job to figure out, in a big team of people, by the way, when you think about it, how do we enable that? What are the tools they need, the solutions they need? How do we predict this ahead of time? So I've learned a lot about ecosystems, systems biology. How do we balance things? Because it's not always about going back to the hammer. Coming in with a sledgehammer may solve the problem acutely, but the second and third order effects can be drastically counterproductive. So how do we find ways to help the body solve its own problems? And this is behaviorally too. We spend quite a bit of time trying to understand the concept of psychologically enduring that kind of extreme, what is going to be, and to some extent in low Earth orbit with the International Space Station, has really strong elements of deprivation. And loneliness can be a part of that. So how do we combat it? I think the world at large learned a lot about what we've been studying during the pandemic, where everything that's done in spaceflight by definition is remote, with a very small team of people and essentially extreme isolation. It has a lot in common with the Antarctic work or the Arctic work, where people are up in stations and very isolated and really have no inputs. That's the other part. It's not just about hearing and seeing things. It's you don't smell the grass. You don't understand what an orange smells like for a lot until we send something to you. And sometimes that supply chain breaks down. So there's a lot of elements that go on that we see happen in real life in micro ways. And we kind of bring it all together and sharpen the edge on what these people are going to experience. So that's what I've been doing for a living for about 20 years, but it has a lot of overlap with special operations communities, with people who do remote, austere medicine, disaster medicine. At Baylor, we have a global health initiative that we connect to regularly to find out what those people need when they go out into the field to do their jobs and serve the people of the countries and in the areas that they go into, who are usually under conditions of extreme deprivation of one or more kind, and could even be under conditions of extreme violence. So we try to make sure our tools serve those purposes and procedures and the concepts. So, but it even talks about the health of the service provider. How do they stay well enough and resilient enough to do their jobs? So multiple levels going on simultaneously. On the technical side, we run these huge Gantt charts and roadmaps to try to track things. But when it comes down to it, when we put it into practice, when we apply these tools and solutions, does it really work? do humans engage in these things? And I think, Jeff, to your most recent comment, is people need options. There's no one size fits all when it comes to these solutions and how people are going to react to these environments. And we have to be prepared to try to give an assortment of tools. So how has all impacted me? So working with the behavioral health community over the years and the different leadership positions I've had, I've really come to understand and be more mindful and self-aware about my own struggles and limitations with the grind, and potentially getting burnt out and losing sight of the amazing things that people are capable of and the solutions they can bring. And I think this is part of the last, when you were introing this section, but recapping the last, kind of like the inundation of noise and the idea of being too busy, which we have a lot of demands put on us, a lot of which are real, some of which, and I'm trying to discriminate myself. So this isn't about, just other people struggling with it, but passively being inundated by things we don't necessarily choose, but we don't understand. We've just acquiesced to it, that we actually have the right to say no to things and the right to reprioritize our well-being before we jump on some other task. And, the ubiquitous use of, electronic tools that can get at us 24/7, 365. It is, that opportunity, and going back to self-love and being gracious about our own needs, is that 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, whatever it is, to choose that for ourselves and to stop the inundation of just chronic noise of people coming at us or things coming at us, demands coming at us. And I've sought for different ways, because it is about, and it was early in the first session, about impulse control, and service providers experiencing people who are being abusive and violent toward them while they're trying to do their jobs and help them. Is like, how do you influence someone and give them a tool to try to regain that impulse control? And in my world as a physiologist, it's shutting down the fight or flight syndrome, that sympathetic nervous system, putting the brakes on it and upregulating the parasympathetic. And that is the level at which, I'm trying to work with data and science to feed into how do we decompose these problems to understand where are some deeper solutions so that people can get tools to assist them recover. So the All Project, I think, was very enlightening to me, because it is a super low cost, very accessible thing. You just need some situational awareness to know, going back to taking a moment to perceive it, giving yourself the time to actually experience awe, not think I'm too busy to do that, so I'm going to ignore that and I'm going to move on to the other thing on my task list. That it's worth it, because it does give you reserve and resilience. Can be challenging to measure, but that doesn't matter, because cause and effect is real, and you've documented that in your papers. I think the other part about awe is sharing, and I really do appreciate the stories today and how open and honest and people are about how it is happened in their lives, and the way it's manifested and the values you found in it. So you find a way to do it again, right? You find a way to experience it. Jeff and I share when we can pictures of the sunrise. That is to get up before all the noise starts and just watch that sun break the horizon and the amazing colors it can display no matter where we are. It is just such a way to start my day that I'm like, brings me peace. I feel like I've reset my regulatory system, and I can be more mindful and more patient if I have those things. When they're not around, and they're not around for several days in a row, it gets tricky. And I notice that about myself, like, oh, I got to take that opportunity. It's kind of like when you get the instructions on the plane, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else. And I have had several of those over the years. Some of them have just been remarkable opportunities given what I do. And I share them with Jeff in the classes I've attended, which I thought were amazing experiences to really understand how other people use things around them to acquire this kind of emotional state that helps you better self-regulate. when I became the chief scientist of the NASA Human Research Program, like talk about workload and just everyone's expectations, my expectations on myself, which were probably greater than anybody else's. Do you take a moment to just understand the recognition of achieving that goal of being in that position and then the leadership responsibility? Probably not, because I was busy driving off base one day to quick get, maybe probably childcare and then home and dinner and then 50 other things we got to get done before 7 o'clock. And an unknown number came up on my phone, hands free, by the way, I was driving. And it was a JSC number ish. So I was like, oh, I get it. I better get this. And I kind of was, a little broken up, but I hear this voice I recognize, but I'm like, there was this, cognitive dissonance. That person was currently on the International Space Station. And he was calling down. He had heard about me getting the job. We have colleagues for several years, and he just wanted to take that time while he was doing his amazing, job and opportunity circling the earth at 17,500 miles per hour, which he could, be calling family. He could be calling mission control. He has a lot of things that got to get done too. And that for another person to recognize me and to stop me in my tracks about just appreciating something was really pretty remarkable. It makes me appreciate, other people who are high achievers and the fact that we all need each other, which goes back to humanity. I will say, as humans, we're a creature of our most recent past. And in the front of my mind, I spent last week in Amsterdam with a NATO group, a special operations force for medical, and talking about needs, requirements, and really what they're going through with the current state in the world, and then what the horizon is for the state. And of course, many of you who are on the line are first responders in many different ways, and you are running toward everyone's bad day, the violence, whatever it happens to be, the fire, and you're putting yourself in the position to sacrifice yourself, and you need tools. And so far, my job has been to figure out what those tools are and how we can make them as best as possible, help the helpers. And so I sat there and listened for 2 days before I gave my presentation and really just absorbed what was going on. I can get pretty wrapped up in my job and what goes on in the United States, what goes on in Houston, and kind of disconnect from the reality of the conflicts in the world. So for people to make it their mission to proceed into conflict and be armed with the capabilities to be part of the solution just struck me like a sledgehammer. It really was just a remarkable experience to spend time with them and understand, could I be of any use to what they need? And if so, that's what I'm going to do. And so that just kind of was this rejuvenation and kind of build back your batteries of, if I got to go into work tomorrow and slave through 150 emails and a bunch of bureaucratic red tape, that's irrelevant. Like, the end product is so much more worth it. I get those things should be processed, out some way, shape, or form, but I can't do that first before I solve the other problems. So it really today come in, hit the ground running. Even yesterday started, figuring out how we were going to make the formalized connections so that what the space program does indeed serve the special operations medical community of multiple nations. And we can do this. There's a way forward. It's us. We choose to solve these problems, the hard ones, and we have the skills to do it. The video for me, obviously, was not a hard choice in terms of day 4 morning. I do love, first of all, the rabbit in the helmet is just classic. Stay curious, for sure. That is kind of the theme, I think, of my life. I just want to ever have that mindset of there's so much more I need to learn. And from people I need to learn. The more diverse, the better. The perspectives I've seen from around the world have just been so enlightening and humbling to me. But the video goes back to some of the most recent discussion, actually, Dr. Hill's comments, like perspective. You talk about just stepping out of kind of your mind's eye and looking at Earth itself. And how do we get those pictures now? Right? Humans were able to solve that problem technically of stepping away from our planet sometimes it's actually with humans in place with a camera taking it. Some of the best shots of Earth have been taken by human beings on the International Space Station and other space like orbiting vehicles. Satellites are pretty good at it too. But the fact that we could do that, where is the will to bring those solutions back and solve these really hard problems? We're so capable, but yet I think we get a little caught up in some of the stuff that we choose not to rule out and distract us from solving the hard problems on this planet, because we've got the skills. Now we have to have the will, and we have to understand the application. The other components of the video, I mean, I think Earth is shockingly small, which, you know, and I think when Jeff and I have talked in the past, I said, you know, going back to water, my favorite place to go, like, not only is watch the sunrise, but at the ocean and just hearing the waves crash on the shore. Mostly because I think, you know, in the way I've expected it, it makes me feel small in a good way, not insignificant, but small, like I'm part of a much bigger thing. And that repeats itself, like at NASA, as one of 80,000 people working for the agency. I'm very small, but without me, it wouldn't go either. Like small but essential, not irrelevant or insignificant. I think going back to perspective sometimes, and very much even myself, like about self-regulation. The concept when you look at Earth versus other planets, and constantly I have the moon behind me, I got Mars up in the other corner. They're very austere, right? They don't they at least don't have liquid water. We're not sure exactly how we would get, you know, the frozen water out of it to be able to use it, but we're going to go there. And in order to do that, we actually have to build an exoplanet. So my mind goes back into like what I do and try to figure out how do we enable humans to do this, because these are forcing functions to solve problems of living under these extreme and austere conditions. We spin these solutions back to Earth and try to enable people to live a better life, and also deal with some of the calamities we've subjected our own planet to. But then also the perspective of when you step back and look at the planet, when we feel like we're struggling so much and maybe we don't have things that we need, this planet is incredibly rich, especially from a biology standpoint, and so much potential for us to take advantage of. So I think, you know, I'm going to wrap up here, but it's just been a remarkable experience participating in the project, in the classes themselves I went to this past summer, and interacting with Jeff to kind of help expand the concept of how all can be applied, and it's boundless. I think I'll leave, you know, on the concept that, you know, working on outer space and people's ability to kind of conceptualize infinity. But I think for those of you who are talking and in the world of being more introspective, inner space is equally as infinite. So, and I love that concept of we are all stardust at an atomic level. Us and the universe are intimately connected. And I believe in the conservation of energy, you know, as a law of physics, that it cannot be created nor destroyed. It just changes form. So most days is just, can I just put some really good energy out into the world and be part of a solution somewhere in some way? And kind of I receive back, you know, an embarrassment of riches per se by doing this job, and people really being grateful for the inspiration that things like the space program brings to bear.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jen. So much in there. I'm really glad you shared that personal story too, because I've heard it a few times, and it's just you talk about the in narratives. There's a term called transportation when you get engrossed, but then like the neural coupling, how everybody hearing that story, and I was looking at everybody's reaction. So that and everything else you shared, amazing as always. Before we jump into Mel, and then we'll have Emmy also sharing comments. Jay, I know you wanted to jump in first.
Yeah, just that. Thank you, Jen, and just reminded me two quick things. One, when the astronaut Scott Kelly finished up his 340 some days in space, came back to Earth, the first thing he did was jump in the water, and his comment was, "Man, that feels good." So to your point of the sensory deprivation aspect of the isolation and the remoteness, and there is something about water. We long for it. We need it. We're made of it. We come from it. In your own personal reflection of, the sunrise and the sunset and the water and the ocean as being rejuvenating, even in its virtual form. So to that point, astronauts experience this thing called the overview effect from space. They look back on the Earth, and it's awesome, and it's humbling, and it's a perspective shift, and it is a spiritual experience to the person. But the rest of us back here, we get to experience the overview effect with these little blue marbles. So I like giving out blue marbles. If we were all in the same room, you would have a blue marble in your hands right now. We've given out over 1 million of them, but they're recycled glass. Never fear, they're recyclable and recycled. But from an arm's length, that's what we look like from 1 million miles away, and that perspective is good to reflect on, and it is humbling, and it's full of awe, and it shifts us, and it should be part of our human narrative that we are, as you said, such a small, beautiful planet is basically made possible by the water. And if we can remind ourselves of that regularly, whether we have to go to space to experience it is another question. The rest of us get to have a marble, or a video or a good story. And so you just reminded me of why we share these blue marbles as part of the conversation. And if you ever need a prop, if you might not have the technology, get a bag of blue marbles and pass them out to a group, and you can riff on a lot of things with this one little visual, physical prop. But I just wanted to share that. I wish I could put a blue marble in everybody's hand, and as a small gesture of gratitude. But Jenn, really your stories and perspective are profound and important. So thanks for that.
Excellent. Thanks, Jay. And I echo that as well. We're going to have our first participant jump in with some comments, thoughts, and reflections. Mel, please introduce yourself just for everybody. I know somebody asked in a recent OR project, the intro video has the New Zealand police logo, and people are asking a couple of times, well, what's the connection? And the connection is, which I've done work with Mel in the executive leaders at New Zealand Police, a soon-to-be published paper on the relationship between awe and leadership. So hopefully 2024 that will come out. But for the time being, even better, we've got you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Middle of the night here in New Zealand. So I'm awake, and certainly awakened after listening to the stories. And Jenn, you're one incredible human. I probably have so much to say in so little time, so I've just got to narrow down what I say. But the connection, Jeff, with you and the OR project has been just, I feel so privileged for being part of a community of people that have like this gift, because we understand what OR is, and so we're that much better for it. And so then being able to share that with others, and it's not just in your work life but in your personal life, and it just it's phenomenal. It's incredible. So listening to you, Jenn, I feel so connected to you because of what you said, and like your the small things around the sharing of looking at sunrises and your connection to the ocean, and the things around movement and exercise, and all those wee things that make you they start your day right, and just make you feel so good, and it's incredible. But when I first saw you speaking and thought about the video, the fact that you're an expert in the field of space. I know nothing about space, so when I looked at the video, it was like, wow, I didn't realize how small we are in this big space. And so I was thinking, well, how on earth could you, that because you're so familiar with it, how do you find the sense of awe when you are so familiar with a topic already? But I think you've already explained that and described it. And so it's really getting that connection and remaining curious to find, that greater inner thing. So just not looking at it on the surface, but really getting in deep. I'm not sure that I really have a question for you. I just would love to listen to you all day, and I just feel so grateful for being part of it. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the community, and I look forward to listening to the rest.
Well, I'll tell you, Mel, I always hold my breath each time I invite Jenn to another talk because I want to be respectful of her time. But she says yes, I think 99% of the time. I'm not even sure if she said no yet. So we're going to ride that wave, and maybe 2024, her along as others. And again, people like Jay and Janae having much longer sessions as well. But that was the spoiler alert. It was me, or was that you and I, Mel, priming them for a future invitation to them and our other speakers to come. So thank you for that, Mel. I give you a high five from across the world on that little marble that we're living on. Who do we have? Emmy, you're up next. Thoughts, comments, please let everybody know who you are too.
Can you guys hear me okay? All the way from frigid, I call it frigid Minnesota in the United States. Winter has come upon us, and here we are. I have been working in a mail facility in St. Cloud, Minnesota for the past going on 18 years here in a minute. I'm also a negotiator, hence how I met Jeff through some negotiations conferences along the way. And I think we can all agree that the vast majority of us are just so blessed to be here today and to listen to like-minded humans who are inspired by awe. Like the rest of us out here, I also would think that we can agree that there are things in this world that suck. And so with Jenn, I support and loved your opening line about you have to move your body to take care of health and to take care of disease and take care of the mind. You have to move your body. And part of something that I take care of daily is I try to get in a little awe project meditation for about 5 minutes before I hit the gym. And that always starts my day off right and gets my headspace clear to move on and tackle whatever comes upon me in that day. Working in a facility, I'm not going to say it's comparable to working with NASA or doing the great research that some of you guys are doing or writing books, but I think we all have those moments in the day where it's just not going the way it's supposed to. And in order for us to recenter and get grounded again, we look off into a distance of like something, for me, a granite wall that was built by inmates and is now 135 years old. And how crazy it is to look at granite that was quarried in the back of the prison and to take a moment and like, wow, that's insane. And it grounds me and it forces me to say, guess what? This like blip on the radar that is really bothering you is nothing. And what's truly important is making a grateful, precious moment of awe to be the better blip on the radar that sends a ripple effect. And I feel like the conversation of stardust reminds me of what I call the blip on the radar. Multiple blips on the radar send a ripple effect across the world. And if we're the blips, we're the stardust, we can spread stardust and ripple effect and gratitude and awe and positivity the best way we know how. And that can spread to the masses. And hopefully one day that makes it a little bit more of a positive place. And to me, when I listen to Jenn and the great things that you've done in your space, I am grateful to be a part of this and to hear you talk. And I am grateful for Mel, because I feel like even though you've spoke for less than 3 minutes, we're kind of kindred spirits, and that I don't know all this science stuff. I'm just like a human that does this thing that's like powerful, but very like low level. And yet, whether you have a degree or you don't have a degree, it doesn't matter. Because if you have awe, it kind of connects us all.
Thank you.